For security reasons, some names and locations have been changed. But make no mistake, what I'm about to tell you really happened. I never planned to end up behind bars in Belgium's most secure prison. I was supposed to be on a plane back to London, sipping whiskey, heading home. Instead, I was locked in a cell in Brussels, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, wondering how the hell I got here. And more importantly, how I was going to get out. I wasn't a career criminal. I wasn't violent, but I was a problem solver. People came to me when they needed things moved, no questions asked. A package from France to Germany. A shipment that needed new paperwork. I didn't care what was inside. As long as the money was good, I made it happen. And for years, I never got caught. Until I made one stupid mistake. A man, I'll call him Hugo, approached me in Antwerp. Said he had a simple job. A briefcase. One delivery. Brussels to London. 1 day's work, and you walk away with 50,000 euros, he said. I should have said no. Something about it felt wrong. But greed is louder than instinct. So I took the job. And 24 hours later, I was in handcuffs. Brussels airport. I was minutes from boarding my flight when I saw them. Security officers, 3 of them, standing near the gate. One glanced at me, then spoke into his radio. I turned, walking back toward the restrooms, trying to stay calm. Then, Monsieur, Eretesville. Sir, stop right there. 2 more officers. Coming from the other side. I was boxed in. I had seconds to make a choice. Run. Talk my way out. I chose option 2. It didn't work. They searched my carry-on bag. Pulled out the briefcase. I told them the truth. I didn't know what was inside. They didn't care. Because when they cracked it open, it wasn't money. It wasn't drugs. It was a black market passport printer stacked with fake Belgian and French IDs. Enough to put me away for 20 years. I had no idea what I had been carrying, but the courts didn't care about that. To them, I was a document forger, a high-level smuggler, a flight risk, which is why they sent me to Heron Prison, Brussels' most secure detention facility. And they made one thing clear. I wasn't getting out anytime soon. Most people think prisons are filthy, violent, chaotic. Heron was different. It was new, modern, built like a fortress on the outskirts of the city. Cells with electronic locks. Security cameras everywhere. Guards with military training. No one had ever escaped. And yet, from my first night inside, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to rot in this place. I was going to find a way out. Most inmates spent their days waiting, wasting time. I spent mine studying the prison, because every prison has weaknesses, even one as secure as Heron. I watched. I listened. I learned which guards were lazy, which doors took too long to close, how deliveries came in and out. And after a few months, I had a plan. A real plan. But I needed help. I needed people who had skills I didn't. I needed to find the right allies. Because in a place like this, you don't escape alone. A prison break isn't just about getting past the walls. It's about what happens after. Where do you go? How do you avoid getting caught within hours? How do you get out of the country before your face is everywhere? I needed documents, a safe house, a way out of Belgium. And I knew exactly who could get me those things. A man named Yannick. A prisoner who had connections on the outside. He ran the black market inside Heron. Drugs, cigarettes, favors, he could get anything. And if I wanted a shot at freedom, I needed to make him an offer he couldn't refuse. I had a plan forming. I had a man who could help. But I also knew one thing for sure. Something was going to go wrong. Because in a place like this, it always does. No one escapes alone. Not from Heron Prison, a fortress designed to keep people like me buried alive. But I wasn't planning on dying here. I had one chance to get out. And to make it work, I needed to be smarter, faster, and 3 steps ahead of everyone else, including the people who ran this place. Every escape needs 3 things. A man who knows the system. A man who can move things. A man who can disappear after. I already had one of them, Yannick. He ran the black market inside Heron, and that meant he had contacts outside the walls, which meant he could get things. You need documents? A safe house? That's not cheap, mon ami, Yannick told me. He wanted a cut of whatever I had waiting for me on the outside. I let him believe there was money, but I knew one thing for certain. Once I was out, I wasn't planning on paying anyone. Second, I needed someone who could get through doors. That was Hassan, a former burglar from Morocco. He was serving time for breaking into embassies. If anyone knew how to pick locks, it was him. I don't do favors, Hassan told me. I didn't ask for one. I made a trade. I gave him information on a corrupt guard smuggling in phones. Hassan got himself a phone call to his people outside, and in return, he agreed to help me break out. The last piece was transport. It didn't matter how I got out. If I didn't have a way to disappear after, I'd be back inside within hours. That's where Rami came in. He was an ex-street racer, arrested for running drugs across borders in stolen luxury cars. If I needed speed, fake plates, and a clean getaway route, he was my man. You better be serious about this, Rami said. I was. And now, the real planning began. Heron wasn't like old prisons with crumbling walls and corrupt guards who would let you walk out for the right price. This place was built with one goal: zero escapes. But that was a lie, because I had spent months watching, and I had found two possible ways out. The maintenance tunnel. Underneath the laundry, there was a service tunnel for plumbing and electrical work. It led outside the walls, but a security gate blocked the exit. If Hassan could pick the lock, we could crawl out. The supply truck. Every Thursday night, a food delivery truck came through the back gate. It was searched, but not properly. If we could hide inside a crate, we might have a shot. Both options were risky as hell, but option one had something the other didn't. Control. Inside a truck, we were trapped if something went wrong. In a tunnel, we could fight back. The choice was made. We were going underground. Escaping wasn't just about picking a lock and running. We needed gear, a screwdriver and wire cutters to disable cameras in the tunnels. Rope. The exit led into a steep drainage ditch. A burner phone to call Rami the second we were clear. Yannick pulled through. The tools were smuggled inside food deliveries. Piece by piece, they made their way to the laundry room, where we hid them inside a broken machine. The plan was coming together. And then, everything started falling apart. 1 week before the escape, Hassan disappeared. His cell was empty, his name removed from the work rotations. I asked around. The answer came fast. Solitary. Someone had ratted him out for smuggling contraband. And now, he was locked down indefinitely. Without him, the escape was dead. I didn't have time to find another locksmith. But I had learned something useful in my old life. There's always another way through a locked door. I went back to Yannick. Forget the lockpicks, I told him. Get me acid. With Hassan gone, we had to move faster. The acid would weaken the security gate in the tunnels. The guards rotated every 15 minutes at night. That was our window. We would crawl through, climb the drainage ditch, and meet Rami outside. Everything was set. But in a place like this, nothing ever goes smoothly. And the night before the escape, a new prisoner arrived. One with too many questions. One who was watching us too closely. Someone who could ruin everything. You can plan for months. Memorize the schedules. Study every guard, every camera, every blind spot. But once the escape begins, it's a war against the unknown. And on the night of our break, everything started going wrong before we even made it to the tunnel. The new prisoner arrived the night before. Nobody knew his full name. But the way he watched us, the way he lingered too close when we spoke in whispers, I knew what he was. A snitch. Some guys work for the guards. Some work for the outside world. Either way, if he caught on to our plan, we were done. Originally, we planned to sneak out of our cells one at a time, slipping toward the laundry room where the tunnel entrance was. But the snitch was too alert. We had to move together, fast, before he suspected anything. So, at 1:30 a.m., when the prison lights dimmed for the night shift, we went. No hesitation. No looking back. Yannick was the first to move. He had bribed a guard on the inside weeks ago, trading a stash of stolen pills for a duplicate key. It worked. One by one, our cell doors clicked open without a sound. We moved like shadows, heading toward the laundry room. The tunnel entrance was inside an old utility closet, a metal grate leading to the underground pipes. We were seconds from reaching it when the first disaster struck. A guard appeared at the end of the hall. He wasn't supposed to be here. We had timed the shifts. He wasn't supposed to walk this way for another 10 minutes. But there he was, a tired man, holding a cup of coffee, rubbing his eyes. And when he saw us, his hand went for his radio. I didn't think. I moved. I slammed into him, knocking the radio from his grip, sending his coffee splattering against the wall. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then, he reached for his baton. I grabbed his collar, yanking him into the laundry room. Before he could yell, Yannick hit him from behind, knocking him out cold. I stood there, heart racing. That wasn't part of the plan. Yannick wiped his forehead. Nothing ever is. We didn't have time to think. We dragged the unconscious guard into the corner, stuffed him inside an empty cart, and covered him with dirty sheets. If someone found him too soon, we were dead. But for now, we were still in the game. The entrance to the underground tunnel was beneath an old utility grate. The metal had rusted from years of moisture, making it easier to pry open. One by one, we slipped inside, dropping into a dark, narrow pipe. It was damp, cold. The smell of stale water and rust filled the air. But up above, the prison alarms hadn't gone off. That meant no one knew we were missing yet. We had minutes to make it out. At the end of the tunnel was a metal security gate, the last barrier between us and the drainage ditch beyond the prison walls. It was old, rusty, but still locked tight. Hassan was supposed to be here. Hassan was supposed to pick the lock. But Hassan was in solitary confinement. And now? We had acid and wire cutters, but not enough time. I looked at Yannick. Pour the acid on the hinges. We had practiced this, melting the weakest points instead of the lock itself. Yannick worked fast, his hands shaking. The metal hissed, smoke rising as the acid ate through the rusted bolts. Seconds stretched into eternity. I kept checking over my shoulder, expecting to hear, "Stop right there." The voice echoed through the tunnel. I turned. A silhouette stood at the entrance above. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing right on us. The snitch. I should have seen it coming. He must have followed us, waiting until the last moment to alert the guards. "They're down here," he shouted. I heard the buzz of a radio, footsteps approaching fast. The gate wasn't ready yet. We were out of time, and I had one move left. I rushed forward. The snitch was still standing at the top, screaming into his radio. He thought he was safe up there. He thought we were trapped down here. I jumped, grabbing his ankle with both hands. He let out a choked yell, stumbled, and fell straight into the tunnel. The flashlight clattered to the ground, spinning wildly. He hit the floor hard, groaning in pain. Yannick yelled, "Go!" The last hinge snapped. The gate broke loose. The tunnel was open. We ran. The tunnel opened into a steep, muddy ditch, rainwater trickling through the rocks. We climbed fast, slipping, struggling, adrenaline pushing us forward. Behind us, the snitch was screaming for help. I heard radios crackling, voices barking orders. Guards were coming. We were seconds from being caught. But then, headlights. At the top of the ditch, beyond the barbed wire fence, a van was waiting. Rami. He had come through. And if we could reach him, we were free. We threw ourselves over the fence, barbed wire slicing into my arms. I hit the ground hard, knees buckling. Rami threw open the van door. "Get in." We dived inside. The engine roared to life. The van spun its tires, kicking up gravel, and we sped off into the night. Behind us, alarms, shouting, flashlights fading into the distance. But we were already gone. And now, we just had to stay gone. Escaping Heron prison was the easy part. Staying free? That was where most fugitives failed. I wasn't planning on being one of them. But first, we had to outrun Belgium's entire police force. And they weren't about to let us go without a fight. Rami floored the gas pedal, the van skidding onto a back road, headlights off. Inside, Yannick was breathing hard, clutching his bleeding arm where the barbed wire had sliced him. I kept looking out the back window, half expecting to see prison jeeps on our tail. Nothing. Yet, Rami took a sharp turn onto a rural highway, gripping the wheel tight. "We've got 10 minutes, tops, before they flood the roads." "Then we make them count," I said. The plan had never been to stay in Belgium. Our only chance was to get out of the country fast. And we had two options. Head for France, 90 minutes south, but crawling with police. Go east into Germany, longer route, fewer checkpoints. Yannick wiped sweat from his face. France is a death trap. We go east. It was the right call. But the problem? The highway cameras. The second we passed one, the police would know exactly where we were. We had to ditch the van. Fast. Outside a small farming village, Rami pulled onto a dirt road, killing the engine. The three of us jumped out, moving quick. "What now?" Yannick asked. I pointed at an old Peugeot parked in front of a nearby barn. "We take it." Rami popped the door lock in seconds, his old racing skills kicking in. Wire sparked. The engine rumbled to life. I exhaled. We weren't safe. Not even close. But we were moving again. By now, Belgium was on lockdown. Every border checkpoint, train station, and highway was being monitored. The news flashed our faces everywhere. 3 dangerous fugitives on the run. Armed and extremely dangerous. That last part made me laugh. We had no weapons, just sheer desperation. And then, as we approached the E42 highway to Germany, I saw it. A police roadblock. 2 cars. 5 officers. Checking every vehicle. We couldn't turn around. We couldn't stop. And if we slowed down, they'd see the blood on Yannick's sleeve. I looked at Rami. Drive casual. Yannick clenched his jaw. If they stop us. Then we improvise. The car rolled forward. I kept my hands still in my lap, trying not to look tense. A cop stepped up to the driver's side window. Rami cracked it open, forcing a bored expression. The officer peered inside, eyes sweeping over us. Then, he stared at Yannick's sleeve. The blood. I could see the gears turning in his head. Then his radio crackled. Another officer called out from behind. They found the van. It's in the village. The cop's eyes snapped back to us. Something was wrong. We weren't going to talk our way out of this. I made my choice. I moved fast. Before the cop could draw his gun, I threw open my door, slamming it straight into his ribs. He stumbled back, cursing. Yannick grabbed the wheel. Rami slammed the gas. The car lurched forward. Another officer raised his rifle. A gunshot cracked the air. Glass shattered behind me as a bullet tore through the back windshield. We were past them now, tires screaming, the highway open ahead. But we weren't safe. Not yet. Because now, they had seen our faces. And we had less than an hour before every cop in the country was after us. The plan had been to take the highway into Cologne, find a safe house, and disappear. But after the shooting at the roadblock, we couldn't risk the main roads. Rami took a detour, cutting through back roads, dirt paths, places only locals knew. And then, after what felt like a lifetime of running, we crossed into Germany. No police. No roadblocks. Just an empty highway stretching into the night. Rami let out a long breath. We did it. But I wasn't so sure. Something felt wrong. Then, my phone buzzed. A single message. From an unknown number. You should have stayed in prison. And just like that, I knew we had bigger problems than the police. Crossing into Germany should have been the end of the chase. No more roadblocks. No more helicopters. No more sirens. We should have disappeared into the back streets of Cologne, blending into the millions of people who didn't care who we were. But the text message changed everything. You should have stayed in prison. This wasn't the police. This was something worse. I stared at the message, my pulse pounding. Yannick leaned forward. Who sent that? I didn't answer. Because deep down, I already knew. Before my arrest, before the job in Brussels, I had worked for powerful people. Not the kind you see on the news. The kind who stay in the shadows, pulling strings. I had done one job too many, moved one package I shouldn't have, and they made sure I took the fall. Now, they knew I was free, and they weren't about to let me walk away a second time. We reached Cologne just before sunrise, pulling into a rundown motel on the outskirts of the city. The kind of place where the guy at the desk didn't ask questions as long as you paid cash. Inside, we sat in silence. Yannick's wound was worse than we thought, his sleeve soaked through. Rami was pacing, checking the window every 2 minutes. Me? I was thinking. We weren't on the run anymore. We were being hunted, and I needed to figure out who was coming for us. Fast. At 2 a.m., the first man came. I was awake, sitting by the window, my mind racing through every possible move. That's when I saw him. A black BMW, engine idling across the street. A man stepped out, tall, built, moving like a professional. Not a cop. A fixer. One of theirs. He wasn't looking for us. Not yet. But he was watching the motel. Waiting. I turned to Rami. We have to go. Now. We grabbed what little we had, slipping out the back entrance while the man outside was still on his phone. Rami had a connection in Hamburg, a guy who ran fake passports. If we could get there, we could disappear for good. One problem. We needed a new car. Outside a convenience store, we found an old Volkswagen, keys still in the ignition. Some kid must have left it running while grabbing snacks. Bad for him. Good for us. We jumped in. Rami floored the gas. By the time the man in the BMW realized we were gone, we were already on the highway. We had one last shot at freedom, and I wasn't about to waste it. The drive to Hamburg was 6 hours. Every mile felt like an eternity. No sirens. No police. Just the nagging feeling that we weren't alone. Then, in the rearview mirror, headlights. Coming fast. We weren't outrunning them this time. This wasn't the police. This was the people who wanted us gone. I clenched my jaw. No more running. It was time to end this.